Hello, everybody. My editors got this video all together. There was something that I just felt like needed to be said in the video that wasn't, just as kind of like a disclaimer. Now, there's a lot of sensitive topics. There's a lot of talking about things that are honestly really traumatic to me, and they might sound very exaggerated and dramatic and whatnot, but it's really just my emotions. It's just me feeling and getting it all out. I don't mean disrespect in any kind of way to anybody. I don't want anybody to feel offended or hurt by anything that I say. I do talk about some things that are very private to me. When I start talking about, a few spiritual experiences that I've had, I do know that our minds are very smart. We can see things that are not actually there, hear things that are not actually there. I just want to point out that I do recognize that some of the experiences that I have had could have just as well been my own mind and brain creating these things that were not actually there. So prepare yourself for that. Yeah, hopefully you enjoy the rest of the video.
Really having a hard time I'm just questioning everything, and I don't know what's true anymore. I think with everything that the church teaches has just been, instilled in me my entire life. I don't know what to do because I always thought that was something that was just on the surface and that it was people and it wasn't our doctrine, and that, these were things that could potentially change at some point, when people realize that God is more loving and accepting. Everything that we have cultivated and have believed as a religion, have come together, comes from this book, from the Book of Mormon. And come to find out that so much of it is plagiarized, and I've heard that before, and I always just kind of scoffed and rolled my eyes like people are crazy. But then there's actual proof of textbook material that was used in the education system while Joseph Smith was alive, near where he grew up, and basically word for word things being exactly the same. And I don't know, it's just so confusing because people wonder why Joseph Smith alone and the kind of things that he did and the kind of person that he was, how does that unravel your whole beliefs of the religion as a whole? And that's really because it all comes from the Book of Mormon. And, questioning Joseph Smith's authority that he had to receive revelation from God and, guide all of these people. I question his authority with the things that he was doing. And all of this is so painful because it's everything that I've ever known and everything that it's just every decision that I've ever made, everything has come back to the church. It's scary because we're told that without the church that we'll be unhappy and we won't know where to go or what to do. And that's so scary because I've been doing everything, go to the temple, we have regular church attendance, we serve in our callings. I currently don't have a calling because we're in a new ward. I haven't received one yet, but I have faithfully served in my previous callings, and Colin is faithfully served in his calling. We take the sacrament every week. We wear our garments faithfully. We're reading our scriptures every single day and praying every single day, all day, and paying our tithing faithfully, and just believing that these were all the things that I needed to do for things to work out. I'm questioning like whether all of this like extra work and things that we do, not that it's hard for me, it's never been like felt like a burden or like it's been this difficult thing. It's not that at all, but I'm just questioning whether all of it is necessary, because I just believe that we're all going to be back together no matter what.
I just want to let you know that I have made the decision to remove my name from church records. Everybody knows I still have the same amount of love for everybody. It's nothing like anybody in our family has said or done to me or anything. I've kind of been on my own like sort of like faith journey. Basically, since I got home from my mission, when I came home early, there was a lot of like problems I started having with church culture, with like things that people said to me, and like when am I going back out, or why'd you come home? Like people telling me that like I need to get back out as soon as possible without even knowing like what was going on internally. It kind of like led to me having like a lot of like underlying questions, and I've had like doctrinal questions about stuff that I can't explain for probably as long as I can remember, like since I got old enough to like research things. And then the situation with happened that threw my trust in local leadership basically out the window. I love and respect you guys so much, and I know that like a lot of the stuff that we learn is like that we're an eternal family, and that I know that like some of the things that the church teaches can be hard if somebody steps away. I just want you guys to know that I still think I'm going to be there, and I love you guys.
I believe that there's a God, you know, and I think hoping for something is also a type of faith. And for me, I feel like I know that there is something, because I've had far too many experiences of like interacting with, I don't know how I would really exactly word this on like camera to the internet, but because of my sister, like basically seeing, hearing, and conversing with people who have been here and who have died. And in high school, I struggled with seeing things that were evil, and Conrad would also see the same things and describe them to Mom, and I didn't know that. And then Mom would come to me and be like, do you remember this thing that you described to me that was like kind of scaring you? She said, Conrad described the exact same thing to me, and he thinks it's real, and I'm so confused. Mom actually took me to a like neurologist, had my brain scanned for an MRI on my brain, all of this stuff, because she was convinced that I was schizophrenic when I was telling her about these things that I was experiencing. Everything was coming back like, nope, she's normal. But I believe that there's something that brought us here. You could call it God, you could call it the universe. I believe like in some form of like a mother nature. I don't know if I believe that there is like a devil or a hell. I kind of like think about it as more like, you know, we have some type of God, and we have like our own agency. And when we have agency, which is like supposed to be God's plan taught in the Mormon church, like that is how we experience emotions and feelings. And you know, that's the whole reason that Adam and Eve had to like be kicked out of the garden, like supposedly a part of his plan, because you know, we needed to be able to know the differences between good and bad and happy and sad, and have all of these emotions. And those emotions are going to cause like bad feelings and negative things, and just like all of these things. Like, who are we to say that that's like Satan telling us those things? Are we putting blame on someone else for like our decisions? I'm just so confused, and you know, really thinking about like how toxic it is, like And I know a lot of religions have done this for a long time, and I was like, that's so weird. And I'm like, our church is doing the exact same thing, where they're telling us what we can and can't eat, what we can and can't wear, where we can and can't go on certain days of the week. Sunday. And you know, like, there's a lot of fear-based teachings, and like, if you're not absolutely perfect, you're gonna go to hell. But nobody's perfect, so you just have to make sure you're repenting all the time. And you know, if you question things, you're looked down upon. Like how could you even ask this? Like, whatever. And it's just like talking to us about like pornography and masturbation, and which are perfectly normal parts of a childhood's life, like a kid's life. Like, in masturbation, personal opinion, as soon as you're thinking about it, as soon as you're curious, I genuinely believe that you should, I mean, unless you don't want to, but that you should explore your own body and let yourself know your own body. Don't grow up thinking and believing that your genitalia and your sexuality and all of it is closed off to your future spouse, that it's not even yours, that you can't even interact with it because it's no one's except your future spouse's. Like, the whole purity culture thing is insane to me, and it's like, there's so much that are like, even in the scriptures where it's like, thou shalt not kill, and love, you know, God is an all-loving, like, God, and be kind and do all these things, and those are like amazing things. And then they're like, all right, you talk back to me, like, I'm gonna cut your head off, literally. Or like, you know, I don't like what you're gonna say, so I'm just gonna like kill you. Like, God's telling me to kill you because just like you're really obnoxious and it's toxic to, you know, our friend group. Like, there's so much where I'm like, if all of us are imperfect, why are we being told to follow word for word exactly what certain people in the church, like prophets and apostles, why are we being told to follow everything that they say word for word exactly when they are also imperfect human beings who quote unquote sin every day? And if they can make mistakes just as easily as we can make mistakes, why are we just automatically believing these things? Because they also, back in the day, said that black people were evil and couldn't, you know, hold the priesthood. And they were also saying that oral sex is impure and that you can go to hell for having oral sex even if you're married.
I feel like I literally just watched a whole episode of a TV show. I don't know how long that was, but it was very long. I remember being like exactly where you are, and I think when I finally took that step, or like got to the point where I didn't believe it anymore, and I knew in my heart that I didn't believe it anymore, it was genuinely very hard for me to accept. It took a long time for me to be able to be like, I don't believe in this anymore, and I know that. I literally remember growing up, and I would hear the way that mom and dad would talk about or like they were inactive, and I would literally hear them talk about how they just like became lazy, and that's why they lost their testimony, or they had hate in their hearts, and like that hate, like they had let the devil into their heart basically, and that's why they didn't have testimonies. And just knowing that people in my family who I loved would probably end up talking about me like that. They were talking about how, obviously this is a very simplified version, but they were like, you need to know special handshakes to get into heaven. And I remember hearing that and laughing. I was like, that is ridiculous. Like, the things ex-Mormon people will make up to make us seem crazy, like make us seem like we're some weird cult, like Scientology or something like that. Literally laughing.
I feel very betrayed. Everything I've ever known and loved just feels like it was pulled right out from under me. Feels like I've been majorly punked, fooled, and everyone that's still in it just feel like they're probably gonna hate me or feel sorry for me or look down on me. It makes me want to just step away quietly and, not say anything, not make any type of like announcements, and I don't know.
Yeah, the things that reminded me of, I have decided the church is not true. I'm leaving the church. And I made sure I was so 100% completely sure of that before I told him. And he sat there and tried to argue everything with me. Like, well, what about the church isn't true? And so I just kind of threw out a couple random things. I was like, obviously I had so many reasons. But I was kind of flustered, and so I just kind of threw out a few reasons, and he sat there and tried to argue every single thing with me about how I was wrong and he was right, and he actually compared LGBTQ people to pedophiles in a similar way, in the same way that, like, they're born that way, but to act on it is wrong. And I'm sure pedophiles are some of them at least, are, I don't know if they're born that way or if childhood trauma makes them that way, and I just sat there kind of in disgust because I didn't come out to him that he could compare me to someone who sexually assaults children, but B, that you can sit there and say that someone who thrives on causing harm to helpless children is the same as somebody who feels love for people, who wants to be in a consenting and loving relationship with somebody else, someone who feels the exact same feelings as a straight person, but just for a different kind of people. They are LGBTQ students and alumni of BYU, and they put on this event to support LGBTQ students of BYU. A lot of people there are just kind of members who feel that the church is kind of, behind in the times, and they want to love and support and truly accept members. Some of the people there are people in the middle of faith crises. Some of the people there are just LGBTQ people who want to come and support. Some people are BYU students and alumni who want to come and support. And a lot of people I think are ex-Mormons. Most of them were wearing guns on the outside of their clothing. A couple of them had AK-47s on their backs. And they were pushing us and shoving us and screaming in our face, telling us that we were pedophiles, that we were grooming children, that we were disgusting. holding signs that had the family proclamation written on them, that had scripture verses written on them, quotes from prophets written on them, screaming in our face that we were gonna burn in hell. That kind of proved to me that people who are in the church can be some of the most hateful people. But they can come here and they can threaten our lives with assault rifles, scream slurs in our face, and call us some of the most disgusting things that you can even imagine.
So last night I went to the temple, and I actually went for my grandmother. And for those of you who don't know, when you go to the temple, you're doing work for people who have already died on earth. So you're basically completing ordinances such as like baptisms and stuff like that, sealings, which is like marriage for eternity. You're completing those things for people who have died. You can use just a random person's name in the temple. They keep, people's names who need to get done, and you can just go and just do a random name. Or if there's somebody in your family who's died and you want to do that work for them, you can bring your own name. And so I did it for my grandmother last night. This is my dad's mom. And this is my dad who, for those who don't know, I was adopted by my dad when I was around 2 years old. And I think I just turned 2. My mom remarried when I was that young, and the man he remarried was my dad, and he legally adopted me. He is who I have always known to be my dad because he raised me. But yeah, so it's his mom, because my biological dad's mom is still alive. And she's a member of the church, so she's done all of these works too. So after she passes away, she won't need any work done. So the 2 things that I did for her in the temple, one is called initiatories and one is called endowments. So in respect to the church and the religion as a whole, I'm not going to go into major details about what goes on because that is something that they consider sacred. People outside the church like to say secret, but really it's just like for them, it's like basically you have to earn being able to go in the first place. And so it's kind of like a rite of passage, I guess. Like you get to know this information, like if you've done the things that you need to do in order to make it here in the first place. And so that's kind of how I see it anyway. First part for initiatories, I felt really good. What people would tell me is feeling a spirit in the past, but I think really for me it was just like I was feeling good, was being in there. And basically while I was in there, I have a bunch of women who in this room, and like the rooms are like separated by curtains, so I'm just usually with one woman at a time, sometimes 2, and they're basically like reenacting like certain blessings that you now have. Being able to go through the temple and do these things, you have these blessings now. And they're telling me about how amazing and wonderful I am, and that all my sins are washed away and wiped clean, and I am free of all of this, all of the like evilness in the world or the sins that I've committed in the past, and that I am brand new. I'm a new woman. I'm given like a new name, like, so that it's like theoretically this is like I am new. And
she calls me like a queen and a priestess, and that, you know, my husband and I will be rulers over other worlds to come in the eternities. And she then proceeds to tell me about, she kind of breaks down all different parts of my body and blesses them, like, you know, my eyes to see, my nose to smell, my mouth to taste and to speak, my ears to hear. And she goes like my head, my neck, my shoulders, that they'll be able to carry the burdens that I might face, you know, my back and spine and bones and my loins, and my, you know, bloodstream and my reproductive system, that I might, you know, that I'll be able to multiply and replenish the earth with my husband. And mind you, I'm doing all of this in the name of my grandmother, so this isn't like, I'm not supposed to take these things literally as like she's saying them to me, because she's saying them to my grandmother, basically. The endowment session, I felt that there was nothing evil in there. There was nothing satanic. There was nothing twisted. There was nothing dangerous or wrong or evil. None of that. I don't understand the reasoning behind the church teaching that this is essential for making it into the celestial kingdom, which, for those of you who don't know, is taught to be the highest degree of heaven that you can get to, where you are living in the presence of God. And the church teaches that this work is essential in order to live there after we die. There's definitely some stuff that I really think is unnecessary, but I'm not judgmental towards people who would do it, but I just don't feel like it's something that's for me. And that is, this is not what they call them in the temple. Just out of respect for the church, I don't want to reveal that. Basically, people outside the church refer to these things as secret handshakes. That's not technically what they are or what they're called, but there's things that you have to learn and memorize and do, along with like scripts that go along with the hand stuff, that is taught while you're in there, that you need to know these things in order to make it through the veil into God's presence and into his kingdom. That you have to know these. It's kind of like, what's the secret password kind of thing, which I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Wow, I needed this because I need to film a bunch of YouTube shorts today. Speaking of which, if you haven't watched my YouTube shorts, what are you doing? Go watch them right now. Well, watch this video all the way to the end, then go watch my YouTube shorts. Also, if you're not subscribed, what are you even doing with your life? Do you want to keep getting my videos recommended to you? Do you want to see this more? I want you to see it more. So like, just hit that little red button. Ding, ding.